people are still dropping in. Yeah. So welcome everyone to our webinar on the visiting scientists and access to infrastructure calls from the EJP soil. My name is Katharina Meurer. I'm researcher at SLU, and I'm together with Andreas Baumgarten and Božena Smertak responsible for these two calls. And during today's webinar, we would like to give you an overview over the two calls. Some of you have maybe listened to our previous webinars already, but as you might have realized, there have always been some minor or major changes in the calls, so it's definitely worth listening one more time. This meeting will be recorded. I guess you all got the message after you logged in. Further, I suggest that if you have questions throughout the presentation, then please drop them in the chat. Either one of my colleagues or the one of us who's not presenting will try to answer them, but it's also easier for us to kind of collect some of the questions that we can then take up after the presentation. So we actually planned, the presentation will not take 1.5 hours, but we planned enough time for questions. All right, so this is today's agenda. I will start with a short welcome, or started already, and I will give an introduction mainly about the EJP soil very briefly. Then Božena will present the visiting scientists call. And after that, I will talk about the access to infrastructure call, and also the organizational framework and the subcontracting, which is related to the access to infrastructure call. And then as a last point, we will have a quick look at the application procedure, which I guess is most interesting for you. So very briefly, the EJP soil, or the European Joint Programme soil, works towards climate smart sustainable management of agricultural soils. This program started in 2020, so it has been running for a bit more than 3 years already. The lead of this program is INRAE in France, and in total we have 24 countries involved, which you see in this map. So you can see that it's actually a pretty big program, European program. So the long-term expected impact of the EJP soil is actually to ensure that the farming sector becomes a steward of land and soil resources in Europe, which actually means that one of our main aims is to ensure that farmers actively contribute both to adaptation to climate change with regards to agroecosystems, and with that also to climate change mitigation. And in order to reach that, EJP soil has 6 expected areas of impact, which are kind of a bit like the pillars of the program, and which we use, which we target our specific tasks towards. So, and these expected areas of impact are listed here. We are not going through them in more detail. You can find them on the homepage. I posted the link there below. And these impacts are pretty important also for those of you who would like to apply for one of the calls, because in your application, we will ask you to kind of integrate your application or link your application to one, or ideally more than one, of these expected impacts. So in these calls, it's important that you can actually show that the project or the application that you send in is somehow linked to the EJP soil in some way, which means that it somehow addresses the expected impacts. So the two calls, we're talking about two calls here. One of them, the visiting scientists, the other one, the access to infrastructure. The visiting scientists is a call that is led or integrated into the work package 5, which is on education, on higher education and support of young scientists. And the access to infrastructure call is integrated into the work package 7, which actually works on, among others, access to infrastructure. So these two calls are complementary to the activities that we have within the EJP soil. So they enable researchers from the EJP soil, but also outside the EJP soil, to, for example, contribute to work that is undertaken in other EJP soil work packages. So this means linkages and exchange within the EJP soil. This falls within work package 5. Or to exploit the European soil research infrastructure, which goes even beyond the EJP soil. And this falls within the work package 7. So in both calls address researchers, but also non-research technical staff who can apply and use the grants provided to enhance collaboration between different institutions, for example, and exchange expertise in facilities of the EJP soil, but also outside the EJP soil. So, and here we are still talking about two different calls. One of them mainly trying to strengthen institutional partnerships. So the visiting scientist support is really targeted towards EJP soil members and exchange between members of the EJP soil, while the access to infrastructure call facilitates the access to the soil research infrastructure, which means laboratories and long-term field experiments. And the main idea of the calls is to enable this exchange, either physical visits or knowledge exchange. Yeah, but we will go through the individual calls now so that it becomes a bit clearer which of the calls might be interesting for the ideas that you have as applicants. So the visiting scientist support call. Božena, are you with us?
I didn't find her, and maybe she has some technical problems.
Okay, but then I will just take over this part.
Yeah.
Thanks, Eva.
Thank you.
So the visiting scientist support targets, or as I said, it's within the work package 5, which is the work package on education, training, and capacity building. And potential activities that could be covered by the grant of this call is basically anything that has to do with exchange, knowledge exchange, but also physical visits between EJP soil institutions. So for example, for planning or development of joint proposals, for participation in workshops or seminars, but also conferences that are relevant for the EJP soil aims and scope. And these workshops, seminars, and conferences do not necessarily have to be hosted by an EJP soil member. So, but also when it comes to publication writing, method development, teaching, or development of learning material, this call can be very interesting, or other activities within the EJP soil program. So as I said, this call is for EJP Soil members only, and the grants are only dedicated to EJP Soil partner institutions. And this means both full partners, but also those that are involved as third-party members. They are also included here. Then it is each of the EJP Soil members has a specific budget allocated to the different work packages, and how much money you as an applicant could potentially take out for a visit supported by this grant strongly depends on how much budget your institution has allocated to work package 5, because the money that the grant will be paid with will be taken from that budget allocated to work package 5. There is no financial limit, so it really depends on how much your institution has allocated or how many applicants there are from your institution. And as I said before, the purpose of the training or the visit must contribute to the EJP Soil expected impacts 1 to 6. But this is also true for the other call. So here, there is no financial limit, but there is a time limit. So the visits should not be longer than 2 weeks. Sometimes they are even shorter, and this depends on how much money your institution has allocated. This grant includes the travel and the accommodation, as well as the daily subsistence. And yeah, I mean, the money goes to the applicant only, the grant. There is no coverage of costs for administrative processes. So for example, medical coverage or insurances or so. And equipment operation costs are also not covered. So it's really only physical visits. Okay, so then we hop to the second call, which is the access to infrastructure call. And here, the main purpose is to involve either a laboratory or a long-term field experiment. So if you would like to analyze your own soil samples with a method that is not available at your own institution, then this call might be or will certainly be of interest for you. So if you have, for example, a laboratory that is outside the EJP soil, which you think should analyze your samples, or if there is a long-term field experiment that is interesting for your research topic, and you would like to get some more soil samples, then you can also apply here in order to get funding for that. So the aim here is to financially support laboratories and long-term field experiments rather than actually researchers traveling, internal researchers, but we will come to that later. Here we have a maximum amount of 5,000 euros that can be applied for. And for laboratories and LTEs that are linked to the EJP soil, equipment operation are not covered by this grant, but will have to be taken from the institution's EJP soil or work package 7 budget. So for this call, we actually also have a limited number of requests for applicants from non-European countries. They can also apply. So then what is covered by this grant or by this call is really dependent on if you're EJP soil partner or not. As an EJP soil partner, we start here on the left. you should apply together with a European laboratory or long-term field experiment that is outside the EJP soil consortium if you want soil to be analyzed or soil to be sampled. So this call really, for EJP soil partners, this call covers costs for sampling and analysis, as well as staff costs at laboratories and long-term field experiments outside the EJP soil. In this call, no physical visits are covered. If you, as an EJP soil partner, want to visit the laboratory or the field experiment, then this would have to be at the expense of your institution. So as a non-EJP soil partner here on the right, you can apply for physical visits to a laboratory or LTE that is linked to the EJP soil. And the laboratory list of laboratories and LTEs that are linked to the EJP soil can be found on the homepage. I posted the link there on below. So we will upload this presentation, so you will get access to all the links. Yeah, so for non-EJP soil partners, this call or this grant covers physical visits, but no sampling and analysis. So those EJP soil labs and LTEs that host a non-EJP soil partner within this call, they will have to stand for costs for sampling and analysis, or will take it from their Work Package 7 budget. So since since this call involves institutions, so laboratories or LTEs outside the EJP soil, there is some organizational framework and administration to be done, because we as the EJP soil, we will have to subcontract those laboratories outside the EJP soil. In the call, the idea is to actively include site managers and laboratory staff, who then contribute with knowledge and soil samples and analysis. For example, in the form of ring trials or intercomparison programs. This falls under the Article 13 of the EJP soil grant agreement, which allows us to subcontract those laboratories or LTEs in order to be able to then reimburse them for their costs. And for that, there will be a contract made between Bioscience, who is main responsible for this task, and the respective institution. And in this contract will be between those two partners and will describe the service, so the analysis or sampling that is included in this project or this application. It will state the granted amount. As I said earlier, it will be a maximum amount of 5,000 euros, and the tasks and the time frame of the work. The contract will further include the descriptive text of task 7.4, which is the work package that takes care of this call. There will also be the Article 13 of the grant agreement, and then this contract will have to be signed by both BIOS and the lab or LTE that is involved. So regardless of if you apply as an EJP Soil member or non-EJP Soil member to the 7.4, so to the Access to Infrastructure call, you will receive a grant award letter, which will then contain the data of the beneficiary, the amount, and institutions involved, and a short description of the mission or of your project. So, okay, but then there is the question, how do I find the right call for me or for my project and my idea? And I hope that this figure can be of help for that. So it depends a bit on if you are EJP Soil member or non-EJP Soil member. As you see on the left-hand side, as EJP Soil member, you can make physical visits to conferences or courses or to other EJP Soil members for paper writing, teaching, measuring, whatever, using the visiting scientist support call. So if you are interested in physical visits within the EJP Soil, then send your application to the visiting scientist support task 5.4. If you are not necessarily interested in physical visits, but if you want soil samples to be taken or to be analyzed, then the Access to Infrastructure 7.4 call is the right call for you as EJP Soil partner. If you are an external, so if you are not EJP Soil partner, but would like to visit one of our EJP Soil labs or LTEs, then you should also apply to the Access to Infrastructure call as an external or non-EJP Soil partner. And in that case, for non-EJP Soil partners, 100% of the costs, so 100% of the visit, of the physical visit, will be covered by Work Package 7 to a maximum of 5,000 euros. So, okay, let's assume you've now already found the call that you want to apply for. Then how to do that? So in case that you have not found the right call yet, or you would like to develop your application a bit further, then don't worry, we have these calls 2 times per year, announced 2 times per year, and they are each time open for 1 month. So the spring call will now be open from 1st to 30th of April, and then there will be the autumn call from 1st to 30th of September. So if you miss the spring call, don't worry, there's also the September call where you can apply for. You find all the necessary information and document on the EJP Soil homepage, and we will also upload the slides and the recording of this webinar there, in case that you would like to have a look at it one more time. In addition to that, all the application templates can be downloaded from the EJP Soil website, and the link is provided here. So what is, of course, interesting to know is which LTEs and laboratories are included in the EJP Soil. We have a database, or actually 2, one for LTEs and one for laboratories, that lists all the partners, first all the countries, and then if you click on the countries, then you get a list of laboratories or LTEs that are included. And you also find more information on the LTEs or laboratories. So you can click yourself. There's also a search function, so you can actually search for institutions that could be of interest for your research. So these are the application templates. And as you see, there are 2 different one for actually 3. The one for the visiting scientist support is not shown here because this looks very much like the one for the non-EJP soil members. For the EJP soil members, since this call requires, at least the access to infrastructure requires a joint application with the LTE or laboratory, both the applicant and the institution will have to fill in this application. So it really is a joint application with 2 signatures. For non-EJP soil members who are interested in physical visits, there it is enough to apply as a single applicant, together with an invitation letter of the host institution, of course. But a list of documents that has to be provided, it can be found on the homepage. One of the most important documents I would like to show here is the financial consent form that has to be filled in. And as you see, you should give information on the staff type. So are you a researcher, a postdoc, or a technician, for example? Then you should enter the direct personal costs. And for the visiting scientist support, which means exchange within the EJP soil, you can actually include parts of your salary as direct personal costs, so that parts of it, 44%, will be covered by the work package 5 for a maximum of 2 weeks. And for the access to infrastructure calls, here as direct personal costs, you should give, for example, the salary of the technical staff who will either take your soil samples or run the analysis for you. Then there should be information on the travel and subsistence. And very, very, very important is the signature there below, because the financial consent form has to be signed not by the applicant, but by either the national coordinator, if you are EJP soil member, or by the finance officer, if you are non-EJP soil member. Non-signed financial consent forms, or those that are signed by applicants who are not national coordinators or financial officers, cannot be evaluated. Unfortunately, they are not valid. Okay, so after you filled in the application form and the financial consent form and have an invitation letter from the host organization as well as a CV, then you should send the applications to both Božena and to myself. You will then receive a confirmation that your application has been received. If you don't receive that, send it again, please. And after the end of after the deadline of the call, then the applications will be forwarded to the scientific committee, which will evaluate the scientific value of the visit or the project or the application, then the compatibility with the EJP soil aims and scope, and the relevance to the EJP soil expected impacts. So I recommend to have a look at the expected impacts before submitting the application. And here on the right, you see that the scientific committee currently consists of members from IUNG in Poland, BIOS in Austria, INIAF in Portugal, and SLU in Sweden. So that was basically it. Thank you so much for joining, and I think then we open up for questions. There might be questions in the chat already, maybe.
No, so far we haven't received any questions.
No, okay, everything was crystal clear. That's
Oh,
great.
when can the conference happen?
Sorry?
When can the conference happen? I guess, Mr. Örjan, maybe you can.
That's a good question. Usually we take the evaluation of the proposals or of the applications that shouldn't take longer than 2 weeks. So we usually recommend that between the deadline of the call and the actual, if it's a conference or workshop, there should be at least 3 weeks or a month. And it should be in the future, of course. You cannot apply for conferences that have happened, that you have attended already. Let me stop sharing. Then I see everyone much better.
Sophie raised her hand.
Okay, yeah.
Yes, thank you, Katharina, for this very nice presentation. And I think it's a bit complex because in reality it's actually 3 calls, I would say, but I think this has become very clear here. There's one like more conventional call for just traveling under work package 5, and then these are the 2 calls for the either receiving somebody from outside or subcontracting somebody from outside for analysis or for samples or taking samples, or it could also be for data.
That's right,
This is
yes.
something I wanted to add. For example, just to give you an example, if there is a very interesting long-term experimental site in Greece, and Greece is not a partner in EGP soil, and you would like to have some data from this experimental site, and then maybe a manager of this site would be willing to give you the data, but it's a lot of work to extract the data and to put it in a form so that it can be used by you. And this is also a possibility that you can subcontract this partner in order to provide you the data. Similarly to subcontracting for analysis, and similarly to subcontracting to that he spends, like this Greek partner or Bulgarian or Romanian partner spends like a week in the field to pick some samples for your project. Maybe this is something you have not foreseen in your EGP soil project, but it would add a lot of value because maybe they have some experiments which you don't cover in your consortium of the EGP soil project. So I think this is a big chance for networking and also to provide access to infrastructure, to our infrastructure, but also to get access to other infrastructure. So I would really appreciate if people would, I think it was just too complex to understand, but also maybe the research projects were not that advanced before, that they were thinking about this kind of sampling and exchanging of sampling and exchange of data or exchange of analysis. But I think it's a good chance to be taken.
I totally agree. Thanks a lot, Sophie. Klaus.
Hey, Katharina, thank you for this presentation. I have 2 questions about access to infrastructure. If you could share your presentation again, I think it was the slide number 10 or 11. You speak about the access to infrastructure.
Sorry, which slide?
I think number 10 or 11 or something like that.
Sorry for scrolling through it. This.
Yeah, this one.
This one?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So in the top, you say it involves a laboratory for soil analysis. So that's clear. But then in the red box, it says, so it's not including equipment operations. So how, like, we need equipment, like people need equipment to run the analysis.
Yeah.
So what does this mean exactly?
That means that if the laboratory is part of the EJP soil, then the costs for equipment operation have to be taken from their work package 7 budget. If it's a laboratory that's outside the EJP soil, then it's covered to 100%. So as an EJP soil laboratory, you cannot get paid beyond your work package 7 budget.
But I thought work package like this 7.4 is anyway always if you want to go to a infrastructure that's outside of EGP soil. If you go 2 slides further, the one where you see the tree, the branches.
Yeah.
This one, I thought it's anyway. Yeah, this one.
Yeah.
It's always.
Yeah.
I thought I understood it's always that we as EGP soil members go outside.
Yeah. Sorry, no, that's when you host someone. You're right. So this one here in the lower left, this applies to laboratories who host an external researcher
From EGP soil.
Exactly.
Or
exactly. So then the costs for analysis, that the researcher will get paid for the travel and accommodation, but all the analysis and equipment operation will have to be paid by the host institution, so by the work package 7 budget.
So it's if somebody from outside EGP soil comes, then this is not covered, because then only this person's costs are covered by this call. But everything else has to be covered by work package 7 normal budget. The difference is the outsider is paid 100% and you are just paid 44%.
Okay,
I think that's the difference. Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry for the confusion.
And then the second question, it goes in the same direction. If you go 2 slides further.
Further, yeah.
Yeah, okay, this one exactly. So again, the case, like as a EGP soil partner, we want to make contact with somebody outside of EGP soil. And so it does not include physical visits, but what is covered is the soil analysis elsewhere. But then it's, I think, 4 or 5 slides further, the one with the yellow arrows. Yeah, here it says in the second branch that we can claim still 44% of the work package 7. But I understood that we cannot, we have no local visits. So I don't understand what is actually then covered with this branch. Your institution can claim 44%.
May I maybe add something? Like, and I think there's a lot of confusion because like this internal payments, actually this call is totally for outsiders, and like all the other costs are like normal work package 7 costs. Yes. So think of this call only for as a possibility to pay outside, and like your own costs are normal EGP soil costs. If you can claim no matter whether this has to do something with this call or not, and it's just a normal EGP soil procedure. But this call gives the possibility to include outsiders in your research, either by paying them for some work they do at their place, or for paying them to come to visit you and give you some knowledge, provide some knowledge or learn something from you, but it is like to pay these outsiders. And like your own work is just normal EGP soil work, whether it's analysis or whatever.
And just to say this explicitly, like the money that we pay the outsiders for, it's not coming from our work package 7 money. It's some other pot.
It's an extra fund. We have 100,000 kilo for this, and so far we have spent really very little, because there was COVID and because, like, I think the projects hadn't started. There was no need for samples or analysis, and but I think we have some, we really want to spend this money because it's 100% funded.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I understand.
Thanks. Tula, you raised your hand.
Yes, thank you. Just to recap, I asked about the 5,000 euro limit.
Right, in the chat.
So that, like, if we now look at the second set of arrows here, so that 5,000 is kind of on top of what is said here about the institution claiming 44%, or is this 44% that equals to 5,000 euros? How does that 5,000 euro limit for EGP soil partner fit into this scheme?
Yes, it's 44%. For externals, for non-EJP soil partners, it's 100%.
Okay, so my total cost could actually be around, what is it, like 12,000? Because 44% of that will be roughly 5,000 euros.
No, it's 44% of the 5,000.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, I see.
That way around.
This is explained in the guidelines for the application.
Yeah, it should be, but
okay.
I will double check. Yeah, it's good that you mentioned that.
Yeah.
Can I contribute? I think we were changing a lot on this. So it's Raisa, who is the program manager for GP Soil. I think here maybe you need to add that the person who is be subcontracting the laboratory can claim 44% of the cost, but the laboratory itself, any external laboratory OLTs that will be subcontracted will be paid 100% of the cost up to 5,000. So you need to sum two. So maybe this will also answer the question of Tula.
Yeah. There was another question. Or raised hand. It's gone. Okay.
We have some question in the chat. Should we go through that? So, Hai Chao asked to apply for visiting sciences call. Does the host institution have to be an EGP partner?
Yes. I mean, if it's a physical visit for exchange, then yes. If it's a workshop or a conference, then no.
Okay, I guess question answered. The next one is, how do you suggest to proceed with the host organization before submitting the application form? Contacting them, agreeing with them, the agenda, etc.?
Yes. We highly recommend to contact the potential host organization as early as possible and develop the application together with them.
Okay, thank you. Then the next one is, where can I find the EGP soil partner financing official contacts? I just saw my institute is a partner, but I'm not sure who to contact.
If your institution is an EJP soil partner, then you have a national coordinator, and that national coordinator should, in that case, sign the financial consent form. if you're EJP soil member.
Okay, thanks. And the last one is, how long should we plan the project for? So I guess it depends on the maximum stay duration.
Yeah, okay.
It's 20 days.
So in general, we said, at least for the visiting scientists, it's 2 weeks. But there was a question earlier in the chat if it's possible to extend that period if you have additional funding from other sources. You can, of course, then extend your stay. If for example, your home institution would pay for another 2 weeks. But for these grants here, the time limit is 2 weeks.
Okay, thank you. That were the questions from the chat so far.
Okay. Okay. Are there more questions? No, everyone is already planning their projects.
Maybe can I ask once more?
Yeah.
I know, here, Ivana, I know it was said, but I want to ask again. If I will visit some another institution or a conference or course, so we can reimburse it from 100% in at the end. We can cover travel cost, accommodation, except of insurance.
No, I think it's 44%.
So if we travel from VP5, VP7, we can cover only 44%.
44%, yeah.
From the project, and the rest must be paid from our own budget. Okay.
Exactly.
So,
yes.
yeah. And if somebody will visit our institution, some partner, he will cover it himself or herself.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah.
And the 500% is that no percent 500 euros. It is the same. We have to share 45% from project and okay.
Yes. Yeah.
And if we and this 500%, 500,000 is covered by a host university or by our university. If we travel to some another institution or laboratory, we have to pay this.
If you are traveling, then your home institution
will pay this analysis.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, that's all.
We have another question from the chat. How long does it take after the call is closed to announce the results?
Usually we aim, or we ask the evaluation committee to evaluate the applications within a maximum of 2 weeks. So and I think in the last calls, this worked pretty well. So usually it's 2 weeks after the closure of the call, so mid-May. Yeah.
Okay. And one question is, if we send out the presentation and the whole conversation, we will upload this on the EJP Soil homepage.
Yes, yeah. Everything will be accessible.
Yeah.
There's one more question.
Ulises raised his hand, yeah.
Yeah, so it's maybe just only a confirmation about both this visiting support and the access to infrastructure are both, so if within EJP Soil we can visit another partners of EJP Soil, and so both inside and outside, or only outside? I haven't I don't know if there is limits for access to infrastructure between these two supports.
So for the visiting scientists, the visits are supposed to be within the EJP Soil. So visiting EJP Soil partners or conferences or workshops. And for the access to infrastructure, the physical visits are not covered for EJP Soil partners, but for for externals. So if you want someone from Argentina to visit you, then this would be covered, the travel costs of that visitor.
Okay, but we can still have access to lab analysis within the EGP Soil Consortium. For example, the time that it takes to analyze the samples in another lab within EGP Soil.
No, no, this would be if you have, for example, a laboratory in Germany which is not part of the Thünen Institute or Jülich, maybe there is a very good laboratory for mass spectrometry analysis in Munich, Technical University of Munich, and it's a method which you don't have anywhere else. Then you can subcontract them to do some analysis for EGP soil. And the most important thing is that this has to have an added value for EGP soil. So therefore we want to link it to the expected impact. So it must not be something which is totally beyond EGP soil. So it's not like something which has nothing to do with EGP soil. But if it's a soil sample analysis and the results are then used for a project, and it's a kind of analysis which we don't have here in the consortium, then this can be funded.
Okay. All right. Nice example. So there is the limitation for access to infrastructure for labs outside the consortium. This is meant in this direction. Okay. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Another question in the chat. So the costs must be spent during, sorry, I can't see this further, during for 2 weeks. So the maximum stay is 20 days. We have written in the grant agreement.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's I don't know if I understand the question correctly. Must be
I guess
so. Yeah, all the costs should be. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's not. Yeah, it should be one visit of 2 weeks then. Yeah. Does these financing models work for visiting? For visiting. Here it doesn't matter if it's the same country. It depends on if the institution you're interested in is EJP soil partner or not. It can be the same country. I guess if I understood that correctly.
Yes.
Does the head lab have to be in another country? That's the same. No, it can be in the same country, but it should be outside the EJP soil. Yeah. And you have a list of, on the homepage there, you will find the lists of laboratories and LTEs that are linked to the EJP soil, so that fall within the EJP soil.
But this list, of course, it also has, and they are linked to the EGP soil, but some of them are managed by partners outside of the EGP soil. So, for example, these managers you could subcontract.
Can I ask again?
Yeah.
From VP7, it is possible to pay some experiments on long-term experiments and some analysis in laboratories.
And not experiments, but soil sampling.
Sampling, but it is not possible to pay travel costs.
No, not for EJP soil partners. Those travel costs would have to be covered by the Work Package 7 budget of your institution, for example.
Okay, so it is possible.
So it is possible. You just don't get the 100%, but like the usual 44%.
Okay.
But then if you plan something like this under work package 7, you should contact me as a lead of the work package 7, so that this can be also accounted for in the program and in the report of work package 7.
Okay. Thank you.
We have another question in the chat. Can the same applicant send 2 applications, say one for the conference and one for access to infrastructure?
I guess so.
Yeah, I would say yes too.
Yeah, I don't see a reason why not. Yeah, absolutely. It's possible. Okay. Are there more questions?
Yeah, I have again question.
Yes, yeah.
Is it possible to ask for some travels till the end of the year, or it must be to another call?
Yeah, no, it can be within
to the end of the project, or
basically.
Yeah, doesn't matter.
It would be great a bit before the end of the project, because we have to account for it in our financial reporting.
Okay.
So not in the last minute.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, if there are no more questions, I'm just checking with nothing more, nothing new in the chat. I don't see any raised hands. If there are no more questions, then thank you so much for joining today. As we mentioned earlier, we will upload the presentation and the recording to the homepage. And we're looking forward to your applications. Apply. We highly recommend it.
Good luck with that.
Thanks a lot.
Great.
Thanks
a lot.
Yes.
See you next time.
Kata, could you stay on a minute? Yes,
Yeah.
thank you.